A 4-year-old homeless girl finds a millionaire passed out, covered in rats. But when she tries to help, someone appears behind her and does something that shocks everyone. Watch until the end. You won't regret it. Comment what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is greatly appreciated. The stench of damp garbage and urine mingled with the light rain falling on the uneven stones of the alley. Willow, barely 4 years old, walked barefoot through the dark puddles, her small feet already calloused from living on the streets of Harmony Creek for 2 years. Her tangled, dirty brown hair stuck to her thin face as she searched for anything useful among the torn garbage bags. The girl stopped abruptly when her eyes fixed on something different. In the middle of the narrow alley, among rats scurrying back and forth, was a man. He lay on his side, wearing clothes Willow had never seen on the streets before. A dark suit, shiny shoes that reflected the faint light from the distant lamppost. His hands were clean, without the dirt marks she knew so well. The man groaned softly, his eyes closed, his breathing uneven. Willow approached slowly, as she did with the injured cats she sometimes found. She wasn't afraid. Life on the streets had taught her to recognize true danger, and this man clearly needed help. "Mister," she whispered, lightly touching his shoulder with her dirty little hand. "Mister, are you hurt?" Theodore Cartwright, 58 years old, slowly opened his eyes. His vision was blurred, his head throbbing with a pain he had never felt before. When he managed to focus, he saw the small face of a child watching him with genuine concern. Her eyes were big, dark, full of a premature wisdom that moved him instantly. Where am I?" Theodore murmured, trying to sit up. The dizziness made him stagger. "In the alley behind Joe's diner," Willow replied, still crouching beside him. "Did you fall? Did you hit your head?" Theodore ran a hand over his forehead, feeling a small, painful bump. He couldn't remember how he had gotten there. The last thing he remembered was leaving a business meeting downtown, then nothing. A complete blank. "Willow!" The shrill voice cut through the air like a knife. "Willow, get away from there!" The girl turned quickly, and Theodore could see the fear settle in her eyes. A 32-year-old woman ran toward them, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face contorted in panic. Her simple clothes were soaked by the rain, and she carried a torn plastic bag. "Esme," Willow murmured, slowly getting up. "I told you not to meddle where you don't belong." Esme grabbed the girl's arm tightly, pulling her away from Theodore. "How many times have I told you?" Theodore tried to get up, leaning against the damp wall of the alley. "Wait, she was just trying to help me. You shouldn't be here," Esme said, her voice shaky but firm. Her eyes didn't meet his, as if she were hiding something. "This isn't a place for someone like you." "What do you mean, someone like me?" Theodore managed to stand, still staggering. "I don't understand. How do you know who I am?" Esme paled visibly. Her mouth opened and closed a few times, as if searching for words that wouldn't come. Willow looked from one to the other, confused by the tension in the air. I don't know anything," Esme stammered, pulling Willow closer to her. "I just know the girl shouldn't be messing with strangers." "But he was hurt, Esme," Willow protested, her shrill little voice echoing in the narrow alley. "Just like when you take care of me when I'm sick." "Shut up, Willow." The harshness in Esme's voice made the child shrink. "Let's go now." Theodore watched the interaction with growing curiosity. There was something in Esme's posture, in the way her eyes avoided his, that suggested familiarity. She knew who he was sure of it. But how? And why was she so desperate to take the girl away? "At least let me thank her," Theodore said, taking his wallet from his inside coat pocket. "She helped me when I was—" "No!" Esme's scream echoed off the alley walls, making even the rats stop. "We don't want anything from you. Come on, Willow, now!" She pulled the girl so hard that Willow stumbled, almost falling. Theodore stepped forward instinctively, but Esme was already running, carrying the child almost in her arms, disappearing into the darkness of the street. Theodore stood alone in the alley, the rain intensifying, soaking his graying hair. His head still ached, but now a new sensation dominated his thoughts, a growing obsession to understand what had just happened. Who was that woman? Why did she recognize him? And most importantly, who was that big-eyed, kind-hearted girl who had tried to help him when he was lying among the rats? Theodore knew only one thing. He needed to find answers, and he needed to find that child again. The rain continued to fall, washing the dried blood from his forehead, but it couldn't wash away the image of those childish eyes, full of compassion, that would now haunt his dreams. 3 days had passed since the encounter in the alley, and Theodore couldn't get the image of the girl out of his head. Sitting at his mahogany desk in the family company's office, he distractedly flipped through financial reports, but his thoughts always returned to those big, worried eyes. The headache had worsened. Dr. Thompson, the family doctor for decades, had done several tests but still had no definitive answers. "It may have just been a fainting spell due to stress," he had said, "but we'll await the results of the neurological tests." A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Bennett, the family accountant, entered the office carrying a stack of papers and a worried expression that Theodore knew well. "Good morning, Theodore. I need to talk to you about your father's medical bills," Bennett said, his 67 years weighing on each careful word. "What about Dad's bills?" Theodore straightened up in his chair, momentarily forgetting the girl. Bennett sat down in the leather armchair in front of the desk, adjusting his reading glasses. "There are some irregularities that caught my attention. Spending on medications has increased considerably in recent months, but there are no corresponding medical prescriptions. Maybe Dr. Thompson changed the treatment. I already checked with him. The medications being purchased aren't part of your father's protocol." Bennett opened a folder and showed him a detailed list. "Look here. Insulin for diabetics, children's antibiotics, asthma medication. August has none of these conditions." Theodore frowned, taking the list. The numbers were significant, thousands of dollars in medications that his father didn't use. "Do you think someone is embezzling money? It's a possibility we can't ignore. The only person with direct access to the medical accounts, besides us, is your father's private nurse." Esme. Theodore felt a chill in his stomach. Could it be a coincidence? Was the woman who had reacted with such panic when she saw him in the alley the same woman who had been taking care of his father for 15 years? "What's the nurse's name again?" Theodore asked, trying to sound casual. "Esme Santos. Competent woman. Very dedicated to your father. I always thought it was strange that she never asked for a raise in all these years." Theodore stood up abruptly, walking to the window overlooking the center of the small town. Down below he could see the streets where he had grown up, where he knew practically everyone. How hadn't he made the connection before? "Bennett, I need you to investigate these purchases further, discreetly." "Of course, but may I ask why? Do you suspect something specific?" Theodore hesitated. He couldn't tell him about the encounter in the alley without explaining how he had ended up there, and he didn't understand that himself yet. "I just want to make sure Dad is receiving proper care." After Bennett left, Theodore picked up the phone and dialed home. The maid answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Henderson, is the nurse Esme there today?" "Yes, Mr. Cartwright. She arrived early, as always. She's helping your August with his bath." "Perfect. I'll be there in an hour." The Cartwright mansion was in the upscale part of town, surrounded by gardens that his mother had cultivated with such care before she passed. Theodore parked in the circular driveway and walked slowly to the front door, organizing the questions in his mind. Mrs. Henderson greeted him with her usual smile. "Your father is in his room, resting. The nurse is organizing the medications in the small room next door." Theodore climbed the marble stairs he had climbed thousands of times in his childhood, but today his steps were hesitant. He stopped at the door of his father's room, watching the 83-year-old man sleeping peacefully in the hospital bed they had installed months ago. August Cartwright had been an imposing man, owner of land and prosperous businesses. Now, a victim of progressive dementia, he seemed fragile as a child. Theodore felt his heart clench. It had been weeks since he had come to visit him. "Mr. Cartwright?" The soft voice made him turn around. Esme stood in the doorway of the adjoining room, wearing her impeccable white uniform. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a professional bun, and she held a tray with medicine bottles. For a few seconds, they looked at each other in silence. Theodore searched her face for any sign of recognition, any clue to what had happened in the alley. "How is Dad today?" he asked, watching her every micro-expression. "Well, sir. He slept through the night, had breakfast without any problems." Esme spoke professionally, but Theodore noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she held the tray. "How long have you worked for our family, Esme?" 15 years, sir. Since August started needing special care." "And in all that time, have you always lived in town?" The question seemed to make her uncomfortable. She looked away, pretending to organize the medications. "Yes, sir. Always." "Funny," Theodore said, taking a step closer, "because I was sure I had seen you somewhere recently, maybe downtown." Esme dropped one of the bottles, which rolled across the floor, making a loud noise in the silent room. August stirred in bed, mumbling something incoherent. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, quickly bending down to pick up the bottle. "Sometimes I go downtown to buy things for August." "Alone?" The question hung in the air. Esme got up slowly, the bottle clenched in her hand. Her eyes finally met Theodore's, and he could see fear there, a deep, desperate fear. "Yes, sir. Always alone." But Theodore knew she was lying, and for the first time in 3 days, an even more disturbing question took shape in his mind. If Esme was hiding the existence of the girl, what else was she hiding about his family? The house where Esme lived with Willow was on the outskirts of Harmony Creek, a small, simple building with peeling walls and a dirt yard. When they arrived from the alley that rainy night, Marcus was already waiting for them in the living room, an empty beer bottle on the table, and his face red with anger. "Where have you two been until this hour?" he asked, staggering up from the plastic chair. Marcus was 40 years old and had a history of unstable jobs. His presence in the house always made the atmosphere heavy, as if the air became harder to breathe. Willow instinctively hid behind Esme. "We went downtown to get some things," Esme lied, taking off her wet coat. "Liar!" Marcus took a few steps toward them. "I saw you running from the street by the diner. What did you do there?" Esme felt her heart race. Marcus had a knack for showing up at the most inconvenient moments, always watching, always suspicious. "We didn't do anything, Marcus. The girl saw an injured cat and—" "Shut up," he pointed a finger at Willow. "You, go to your room. Now." The girl looked at Esme for protection, but the woman just nodded. Willow ran to the small room in the back of the house, where she slept on a mattress on the floor, surrounded by the few broken toys she had collected on the streets. As soon as the door closed, Marcus grabbed Esme's arm tightly. "What were you doing downtown? And don't lie to me again." "Let go of my arm, Marcus. I'll let go when you tell me the truth." His fingers tightened, leaving red marks on her skin. "There's something you're not telling me about this girl, isn't there?" Esme tried to break free, but Marcus was stronger. For 2 years, she had managed to keep Willow away from him, making excuses, changing the subject, doing everything to keep him from paying too much attention to the child. But lately he had become more curious, asking uncomfortable questions. "She's just an abandoned child I picked up off the street. You know that. Is that so?" Marcus smiled cruelly. "Then why do you spend so much money on her? Clothes, medicine, good food. Where does that money come from, Esme?" The question caught her off guard. She had been careful, but apparently not enough. From my nursing job, you know very well. Nurses don't make peanuts in this town. Marcus pushed her against the wall. Unless you're doing some extra work I don't know about. What extra work? You've been taking care of that rich old guy for years. House full of money, expensive medications. There must be plenty left over, right? Esme felt her blood run cold. Are you insinuating that I steal from the Cartwrights? I'm not insinuating anything. I'm asking. Marcus put his face close to hers, his breath smelling of alcohol. Because if you found a way to get some money out of that family, I want my share. I don't steal anything from anyone. Then where does the money for the girl's medicine come from? She had pneumonia last month. You bought expensive antibiotics. The week before that, it was asthma syrup. Do you think I'm stupid? Esme closed her eyes, trying to think of an explanation that wouldn't put Willow in danger. The truth was that she did divert some medications from the Cartwright house, but not to sell or profit from. She used them to treat Willow and other street children she found sick. Her medicines come from donations from the pharmacy, she lied. The pharmacist sometimes gives away the ones that are close to expiring. What a generous pharmacist, Marcus laughed. I'll go talk to him tomorrow, confirm this story. Panic took over Esme. If Marcus started asking questions in town, he would quickly discover that she was lying. And if he found out about the medications, if he found out about her real connection to the Cartwright family... Okay, she said, her voice trembling. Okay, I'll tell you the truth. Marcus smiled victoriously. I knew you were hiding something. Sometimes I take some leftover medications from the Cartwright house, but not to sell, she added quickly. Just to take care of Willow when she gets sick. Some medications. Marcus released her, crossing his arms. What kind of medications? The basics, painkillers, antibiotics when needed. And how much is that worth per month? I don't know, I never calculated. Calculate it! His voice was dangerously low. I want to know exactly how much you take from that house every month. Esme knew she had made a terrible mistake. Marcus wasn't interested in her honesty. He was interested in the money. And now that he knew about the medications, he wouldn't stop pressuring her. Marcus, it's not that much. Let me be the judge of that. He took another beer from the refrigerator, opening it with a dry sound. And there's another thing. This girl, there's something special about her, isn't there? What do you mean? She's not a common street child. I've noticed how she speaks, how she behaves. She has an education that street kids don't have. Marcus took a long sip of the beer. Where did she really come from, Esme? The question Esme feared most had finally arrived. For 2 years, she had managed to keep the secret about Willow's true origins. But now she felt the walls closing in around her. I already told you she was abandoned. Where? When? Who abandoned her? Marcus slammed the bottle on the table. I want details. From the room in the back, a low sound of crying came. Willow had overheard the argument and was afraid. Esme felt her heart break. The girl had already suffered so much, and now she didn't know how to protect her. Her mother died, Esme said slowly. I found her alone, hungry, sick. What mother? How did she die? Did she have a father? I don't know of any father. The mother had complications during childbirth, died in the hospital. Marcus was silent for a moment, processing the information. Then his eyes gleamed with a dangerous idea. Hospital means records. Records mean family, and rich family. He smiled. Rich family means money. Marcus, no. I'm going to find out who this girl's parents are, and when I find out, we'll charge a good amount to keep her away from trouble. Marcus finished the beer and threw the bottle in the trash. You may have found our source of income, Esme. And this time, it'll be much more than just stolen medications. Esme felt the world collapse around her. The lie she had created to protect Willow was now turning against them both. And worst of all, she knew that Marcus wouldn't stop until he found out the truth. The next morning, Theodore woke up with the same throbbing headache that had plagued him since the incident in the alley. The results of the neurological tests arrived during breakfast, brought by Dr. Thompson himself, who seemed more worried than usual. "Theodore, we need to talk," said the doctor, sitting down in the mansion's dining room. "The tests revealed something that, well, it's hereditary." "Hereditary how?" Dr. Thompson opened the folder with the results. "You have a rare neurological condition, the same one your father developed. It's progressive but controllable with proper treatment." Theodore felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. "The same disease as Dad?" "A variation of it, yes. The fainting spells and headaches are early symptoms. With medication and constant monitoring, you can have a normal life for many years." "And without treatment?" "We don't want to think about that." Dr. Thompson closed the folder. "I'll prescribe the medications immediately. They're expensive and specific, but fortunately, you can afford the treatment." After the doctor left, Theodore was alone with the devastating reality. At 58 years old, he discovered that he had inherited the same condition that was slowly consuming his father. And worse yet, he would depend on the same specialized care. His mind immediately returned to Esme. If she found out about his condition, she would have even more reason to hide something. But hide what? And why had that girl in the alley awakened such an intense obsession in him? Determined to get answers, Theodore called a private investigation office in Denver. He had heard of a woman named Clementine Rodriguez, known for her efficiency and discretion in delicate cases. "I need to find a child," he said on the phone. "A girl of approximately 4 years who lives in town. Brown hair, dark eyes." "Mr. Cartwright, with those generic characteristics, I can find dozens of children," Clementine replied in a professional voice. "I need more details." She was with a blonde woman in her early 30s. They seemed close, but the woman got very nervous when she saw me. "Interesting. Is there anything else?" Theodore hesitated. "The woman knew me, but pretended not to, and she may have connections with my family." "I understand. I'll take the case, but I need you to be completely honest with me during the investigation." 3 days later, Clementine arrived in Harmony Creek, driving a discreet car and carrying a briefcase full of investigation equipment. She was a 45-year-old woman, her black hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that didn't miss any detail. "I've already done a preliminary search on your family," she said, meeting Theodore in his office. "I discovered something interesting about your father's nurse." "Esme Santos?" "Exactly. She has no employment history prior to working in your house. Before she started taking care of your father 15 years ago, it's as if she didn't exist." Theodore frowned. "What do you mean?" "No employment records, no formal schooling, no known family in the area. For someone who has worked as a nurse for 15 years, it's very strange." "You think she faked the references? Or someone created them for her?" Clementine opened her briefcase, revealing photographs and documents. "There's something else. She lives in a house on the outskirts of town with a man named Marcus Santos and a child." Theodore's heart quickened. "A 4-year-old girl?" "Approximately. Neighbors say the child appeared 2 years ago, but no one knows where she came from." Clementine showed a photo taken from a distance. "Is this her?" It was Willow. Even in the blurred image, Theodore immediately recognized those big, expressive eyes. "It's her, yes, but what's her relationship with Esme?" "I'm still investigating that, but there's something more disturbing." Clementine turned a few pages. "The man who lives with them, Marcus, has a history of financial problems and petty scams. Yesterday, he was seen asking about hospital records in town." "Hospital records?" "Specifically about children born 4 years ago. As if he was looking for the girl's biological family." A chill ran down Theodore's spine. Why would he do that? 2 possibilities. Either he suspects that the child has a rich family and wants to blackmail them, or... Clementine hesitated. "Or what? Or he already knows who the parents are and is planning some kind of extortion. Theodore stood up, walking to the window. Outside, life in the small town continued its normal rhythm. But he felt that an invisible danger was approaching that girl who had tried to help him. "Clementine, I need you to find out everything about this child's origins, and I want discreet protection for her." "Protection? Why?" "Because I have a terrible feeling that she's in danger." That same afternoon, on the other side of town, Marcus returned home with information that changed everything. He had spent the entire day at the registry and hospital asking questions, offering small bribes, until he finally gained access to the records he was looking for. "Esme!" he shouted, entering the house with his eyes shining with excitement. "You're not going to believe what I found out." Esme was preparing dinner in the small kitchen, Willow sitting on the floor playing with a rag doll. When she saw the expression on Marcus's face, she knew that something terrible was about to happen. "What is it?" Marcus waved a folder of documents. "Our little Willow here has a very interesting story." "Marcus, not in front of her." "No, she needs to hear this too." He squatted in front of the girl, who looked at him with fear. "Did you know, little one, that your real family is rich?" Willow clung to Esme's skirt. "Esme is my family." "Oh, but she's not." Marcus opened the folder, showing certificates and documents. "Your real mother was named Carolina Mendoza, daughter of an important family from Denver." Esme paled. "Marcus, stop it." "And you know what's most interesting? She really died in childbirth, as you said. But the father—" Marcus smiled cruelly. "Her father is still alive, and very rich." "Who is the father?" Esme asked in a weak voice. "August Cartwright." The plate Esme was holding slipped from her hands, shattering on the floor. Willow started crying at the noise, but Marcus didn't seem to care. "That's right, Esme. The child you rescued from the street is the granddaughter of the man you've been taking care of for 15 years, and the daughter of the richest man in town." Marcus stood up, triumphant. "We just won the lottery." Marcus's revelation echoed through the small kitchen like thunder. Esme leaned against the counter, feeling her legs tremble. Willow continued to cry on the floor, not understanding why the adults were talking about her family, why there were papers scattered around, why the air in the house had become so heavy. "You knew," said Marcus, his eyes fixed on Esme. "All this time you knew she was the granddaughter of the old man you take care of." "No, I didn't know," Esme stammered, but her voice didn't sound convincing even to herself. "Liar!" Marcus slammed his hand on the table, making Willow shrink even further. "You've been working in that house for 15 years. You know all the family secrets. And you want to tell me that you didn't know that the old man had a daughter who died in childbirth?" Esme closed her eyes, feeling the weight of years of lies collapsing on her. The truth was much more complicated than Marcus imagined, much more painful than he could understand. "Carolina," she whispered. "I knew Carolina." "Aha! I knew it." Marcus smiled like a predator who had just cornered his prey. "Tell me everything, now." Esme looked at Willow, who had stopped crying but remained scared. How could she explain to a 4-year-old that her entire life had been built on a necessary lie? "Carolina was special," Esme began slowly. "A sweet girl, from a good family, but she got involved with a no-good man." "So what?" "Her father, August, was furious when he found out about the pregnancy. Carolina was only 17 years old." Esme sat down in the chair, her legs no longer supporting her. "She ran away from home, ended up here in town. She was alone, scared, without money." Marcus sat down too, interested in the story. "And how did you meet her?" "I worked at the hospital at the time. I was a nursing assistant." The memories came back in full force. "Carolina arrived in labor alone, without documents. She said she had no family. But she did. She had the millionaire father. She was afraid of him. She said he would never forgive her." Esme picked up Willow, the girl nestling against her chest. The birth was... it was complicated. Carolina lost a lot of blood. And died. Yes, but before she passed, she made me a request. Esme squeezed Willow tighter. She asked me to take care of her daughter. She said she preferred that the girl grow up away from the family, away from the problems that money brought. Marcus tapped his fingers on the table, thoughtful. And you decided to fulfill the dying woman's request instead of returning the child to the rich family. It wasn't quite like that. Then how was it? Esme took a deep breath. The complete truth was even more complicated, but perhaps it was time to tell it. After Carolina died, I tried to contact the family, but I discovered something terrible. What? August had already hired people to look for his daughter, but not to welcome her. Esme lowered her voice. He wanted her to disappear. He said that a bastard granddaughter would bring shame to the family name. Marcus frowned. How did you know that? Because he hired me. The confession came out as a whisper. August offered me a huge sum to make the child disappear. He said I could give her up for adoption in another city, make up any story, as long as she never came back to bother the family. The silence that followed was broken only by the heavy breathing of Willow, who had fallen asleep in Esme's lap during the conversation. And you accepted the money, said Marcus slowly. I accepted, but I didn't do what he asked. Esme looked at the girl sleeping in her arms. I couldn't abandon this child, so I invented that she had died too. I forged documents, created a story that there were complications. And you stayed with her, and I stayed with her. I used the money that August gave me to take care of her, to give her a decent life. Esme felt tears in her eyes. Later, when he got sick and needed a nurse, I offered myself. I wanted to stay close, to make sure he never found out the truth. Marcus leaned back in the chair, processing all the information. So let me understand. You've been taking care of the girl's grandfather for 15 years, lying to him that his granddaughter is dead while she lives in your house. Yes. And nobody else knows about this. Nobody. Not even Theodore. Oh, but he will know. Marcus stood up with a cruel smile, because now we have a card up our sleeve much better than I imagined. Marcus, don't what? You handed over the secret of the century. He began pacing back and forth in the small kitchen. Imagine when Theodore Cartwright finds out that the dear granddaughter he thinks has been dead for 4 years is alive, right under his nose. He'll kill me. No, he won't, because you're going to tell him that you saved the girl's life, that you protected her from her own grandfather. Marcus stopped in front of her. And then he'll be so grateful that he'll pay any amount to keep you both well taken care of. Theodore isn't like that. Every rich man is like that, Esme. They pay to solve problems, to keep secrets, to buy clean consciences. Marcus picked up the documents he had spread on the table. And we have the biggest secret of the Cartwright family. Willow stirred in Esme's lap, mumbling something in her sleep. The woman stroked the girl's hair, thinking of the innocent child who had become the center of a plot she could never control alone. What do you want me to do? She asked, defeated. Tomorrow, you'll work normally at the Cartwright house, but you won't just take care of the old man. You'll observe Theodore. See how he is. Find out if he's been asking questions about the girl from the alley. How do you know about the alley? Because I know everything that happens in this town, Esme. And I know that Theodore has been looking for you both. Marcus put the documents back in the folder. When he gets too close to the truth, we'll introduce ourselves, officially. And then? Then we'll negotiate. A generous amount to keep Willow away from the Cartwrights, or an even more generous amount to return her to the family. Marcus smiled. Either way, we're going to get rich. That night, Esme laid Willow down on the makeshift bed in the back room, softly singing the lullaby that always calmed the girl. But this time, her voice was choked with fear and guilt. Esme, whispered Willow, before falling completely asleep, Why was the man talking about my family? Aren't you my family? I am, my little one. I'll always be. And you won't leave me, will you? Esme kissed the child's forehead, feeling her heart break. Never, my love. I'll never leave you. But as Willow finally fell asleep, Esme knew that she had just made a promise that she might not be able to keep. The gears of a blackmail scheme had been set in motion, and she had no idea how to stop them without destroying the only family that remained to her and the girl she loved as a daughter. Clementine had spent 3 days discreetly observing the house on the outskirts of town, where Esme lived, with Marcus and Willow. Her detailed notes revealed a disturbing pattern. The girl rarely left the house, and when she did, she was always under strict surveillance by the woman. Even more disturbing was Marcus's behavior, who had intensified his visits to the town centre, asking specific questions about the Cartwright family. On Thursday morning, she finally had the opportunity she was waiting for. Marcus had left early, and Esme was at work taking care of August. This left Willow alone at home, a situation that Clementine considered unacceptable for a 4-year-old child. She approached the small house, pretending to be a cosmetics saleswoman. She knocked on the door and waited, hearing small footsteps approaching from the other side. "Who is it?" asked a familiar little voice. "It's Aunt Clementine. I came to bring you some little gifts." The door opened slightly, revealing Willow's small face peering through the crack. Her big eyes were curious but cautious, a precaution that children her age shouldn't need to have. "Esme isn't home," said Willow. "I know, honey, but you shouldn't be alone, should you?" Clementine crouched down to be at the girl's height. "Can I come in? It's very sunny out here." Willow hesitated. Esme had taught her not to open the door to strangers, but the woman seemed kind, and she had really been alone for hours. "Just a little bit," she said, opening the door. The interior of the house was simple but clean. Clementine immediately noticed the details that revealed care. Organized toys, clean clothes hanging on the clothesline, children's drawings pasted on the kitchen wall. Whoever was taking care of Willow was doing it with genuine love. "Do you live here with Esme?" Clementine asked, sitting down on the plastic chair that Willow offered her. "I do. And with Marcus too, but I don't like him very much." "Why don't you like him?" Willow lowered her voice, as if telling a secret. "He gets angry with Esme, and sometimes he talks about things that I don't understand." "What kind of things?" "About money, and about a family that he says is mine, but it isn't." Willow picked up a rag doll and hugged it. "My family is Esme. She's taken care of me forever." Clementine felt her heart clench. The girl spoke with the forced maturity of someone who had already experienced too many uncertainties for her age. "Willow, do you remember when you met Esme?" "Not much. I was very little." The girl thought for a moment. "But I remember that she always sang a pretty song to me to sleep." "And are you happy here?" "I am when Marcus isn't home." Willow sat on the floor, arranging the toys around her. "Aunt, why hasn't the man from the alley come to see me anymore?" The question caught Clementine by surprise. "What man from the alley?" "A handsome man who was hurt. I tried to help him, but Esme was scared, and we had to run." Willow's eyes lit up with the memory. "He had gentle eyes. I thought he would come back to thank me." "Would you like to see him again?" "Yes, I would." "But Esme said I can't." Clementine spent another 20 minutes talking to Willow, collecting valuable information about the dynamics of the house. When she finally said goodbye, she was sure of 2 things. The girl was genuinely well cared for by Esme, but lived in an unstable and potentially dangerous situation because of Marcus. That afternoon, she met with Theodore in his office to share her findings. "The situation is more complex than we imagined," she said, opening her briefcase. "The girl is being well treated by the woman you know as Esme, but there's a man in the house who is clearly planning some kind of scam involving the child." "What kind of scam?" "I don't know for sure yet, but he has documents about births in the town. He's been asking questions about your family and—" Clementine hesitated. Theodore, is there something you haven't told me about your family? What do you mean? Did your father have other children besides you? The question hit Theodore like a punch. Not that I know of. Why do you ask? Because the man, Marcus, seems to believe that the girl has some family connection to you. Clementine showed some photographs she had taken discreetly. And there's something in the way Esme behaves in relation to your family that suggests intimate knowledge. Theodore studied the photos, his heart racing when he saw Willow playing in the small yard. Even from a distance, there was something in that face that awakened in him an inexplicable familiarity. Clementine, I need you to speed up the investigation. I have a feeling that this girl is in real danger. I agree. And there's one more thing. Clementine closed the folder. I spoke with some former hospital employees. 15 years ago, there was a case of a young woman who died in childbirth, a girl from a rich family who had run away from home. And her name was Carolina Mendoza. The name echoed in Theodore's mind like a distant bell. Mendoza. Why did that surname sound familiar? Clementine, I need you to check my family's records. Specifically, if my father had any involvement with someone named Carolina Mendoza. I'm already taking care of that. That night, Theodore dined alone at the mansion, but his thoughts were completely focused on the girl from the alley. There was something in that whole story that didn't fit, secrets that seemed to dance on the periphery of his understanding. He decided to do something he hadn't done in months. He went to his father's room for a nighttime visit. August was awake, staring at the ceiling with the empty eyes that dementia had made habitual. But when he saw his son approach the bed, there was a momentary flash of recognition. Theodore. The voice was weak but present. Hi, Dad. How are you feeling? Confused? Always confused. August tried to sit up in bed. Sometimes I see things. People who shouldn't be here. What people? A girl? A little girl with big eyes? August held his son's hand with surprising strength. She looks like Carolina. Theodore's heart stopped. Dad, who is Carolina? But August's eyes had already lost focus again, returning to the emptiness of the disease. Carolina is gone. I made her go away. Dad, tell me about Carolina. I can't tell. August began to fidget. She'll come back. She always comes back in my dreams. Theodore spent another hour trying to extract coherent information from his father, but August had returned to the nebulous world of dementia. However, one thing had become clear. There was a Carolina in his past, someone important enough to haunt the man's few moments of lucidity. When he finally left his father's room, Theodore knew that he had reached the point of no return. Whatever secret Esme was keeping, whatever the truth about Willow was, he would find out. And if his most terrible suspicion was true, if that big-eyed girl was really part of his family, he would do anything to protect her from the dangers that clearly surrounded her. Friday morning arrived with a palpable tension at the house on the outskirts of town. Marcus had spent the night drinking and planning, his eyes shining with the greed of someone who had finally found a way to get rich quickly. Esme was preparing for another day of work at the Cartwright mansion, but she knew that her double life was coming to an end. Today is the day, said Marcus, blocking her passage at the front door. You're going to probe Theodore, find out how much he already knows about the girl. And if he doesn't know anything, then you're going to plant some seeds. Marcus smiled cruelly. Mention abandoned children, how sad it is when families lose their children, make him curious. Esme looked back, where Willow was still sleeping in the small room. The girl had woken up several times during the night with nightmares, calling for her. It was as if the child sensed that something terrible was about to happen. Marcus, this could go very wrong. It could go wrong, yes, for you. He approached, his voice low and threatening. Because if you don't cooperate, I'm going to tell Theodore everything my way, and then you lose the girl and go to jail for forging documents. Esme knew that she had no choice. She grabbed her bag and left the house, her heart heavy with the feeling that this would be the day that everything would crumble. At the Cartwright mansion, she found an unusual commotion. Bennett was in the office with Theodore, both hunched over papers and speaking in low voices. When she passed through the hallway on her way to August's room, she managed to hear fragments of the conversation. "Irregularities in the medications," Bennett was saying. "In the private investigation," Theodore replied. "Someone is embezzling resources." Esme felt her blood run cold. They had discovered about the medications that she took to treat the street children. And if they were investigating that, how long would it take for them to find out about Willow? She entered August's room trying to look normal, but her hands were trembling as she organized the morning medications. The elderly man was more agitated than usual, mumbling disconnected words. "Carolina, where is Carolina?" he repeated, fidgeting restlessly in bed. "Mr. Cartwright, you need to take your medication," said Esme softly, but her voice came out strangled. "Did you see Carolina? She was here yesterday, or was it 15 years ago?" August grabbed her wrist. "She had a girl, a little girl." "I don't know of any Carolina, sir. Let's focus on the medications." But August didn't let go of her arm. "You know, yes, you always knew." His eyes, normally emptied by dementia, gleamed with a momentary lucidity. "The girl, she's alive, isn't she?" Before Esme could answer, the door opened and Theodore entered the room. His expression changed immediately when he saw the scene, his father holding the nurse's arm tightly, she clearly in panic. "What's going on here?" asked Theodore. "Nothing, sir. Your father is a little agitated today." Esme tried to break free, but August maintained his grip. "She knows about Carolina," said August, looking directly at his son. "She always knew." Theodore felt his breath catch. "Dad, who is Carolina?" "The daughter I lost. The daughter I—" August released Esme and covered his face with his hands. "The daughter I sent away." "Mr. Cartwright, you're confused," Esme quickly interjected. "It's best to rest." "No!" August's voice came out stronger than anyone expected. "I'm not confused. Carolina was my daughter, and she had a daughter, my granddaughter." The silence that followed was broken only by Esme's racing heartbeat. Theodore looked alternately at his father and at her, beginning to connect pieces of a terrible puzzle. "Esme," said Theodore slowly, "did you know my sister?" I don't know what you're talking about." "Stop lying!" August's outburst made both of them jump. "Carolina came to me when she was pregnant. I rejected her. I sent her away." Tears began to stream down the elderly man's face. "And then you came, saying that she had died in childbirth, that the child had also died." Theodore felt the world spin around him. "Dad, you had a daughter?" "I did, and I was a coward. A terrible coward." August looked at Esme accusingly. "But the child didn't die, did she? You lied to me." Esme backed away towards the door, but Theodore blocked her exit. "The girl from the alley," he said, his voice low but charged with understanding. "She's my niece. I can explain." "Where is she?" Theodore's scream echoed throughout the house. "Safe! She's safe!" Esme finally broke, tears streaming down her face. "I protected her. I protected her from you. From us. Your father paid me to make her disappear." Esme turned to August. "You gave me money to give the girl up for adoption in another city so she would never bother the family again. And you kept her." "I did, yes, because she was just an innocent baby. She didn't deserve to be punished for the mistakes of her parents or grandparents." Theodore leaned against the wall, trying to process all the information. He had a niece, a 4-year-old girl who was living on the outskirts of town under the care of a woman who had lied to his whole family for years. "Where is she now?" he asked more calmly. "At home, with Marcus." "Who is Marcus?" Esme hesitated. Telling about Marcus meant revealing the blackmail plot. It meant admitting that she had put Willow in danger. He's He's someone who lives with me. Are you married? Not exactly. The hesitation in her voice set off every alarm in Theodore's mind. Esme, is this child in danger? No, I would never let anyone hurt her. That's not what I asked. Theodore approached her. Is she in danger now? Before Esme could answer, Mrs. Henderson appeared at the door of the room, breathless. Mr. Cartwright, there's a man downstairs asking to speak with you. He says it's about a child you're looking for. Esme's blood ran cold. Marcus had lost patience and decided to act on his own. It's him, she whispered. It's Marcus. The man who lives with you? Mr. Cartwright, he wants money. He found out who Willow really is and wants money to not tell anyone. He's blackmailing my family. He's blackmailing me. I just wanted to protect the girl. Esme knelt in front of him. Please, don't let him take Willow. She's all I have. She's the only family I've ever had. Theodore looked at that woman who had taken care of his father for 15 years, who had lied to him for 4 years, but who clearly loved his niece as her own daughter. Where is my niece now? At home, alone. The realization hit Esme like a bolt of lightning. My God, she's alone with that man here. Theodore didn't wait for any more explanations. He ran out of the room, rushed down the stairs, past the man who was waiting in the living room without saying a word, and left the house. For the first time in 4 years, he knew exactly where to find Willow, and this time, nothing in the world would stop him from bringing her home. Theodore drove like he had never driven before through the narrow streets of Harmony Creek. His mind was in turmoil, anger, fear, guilt, and a desperate urgency to get to Willow before something terrible happened. Behind him, Esme cried in the passenger seat, giving directions between sobs. "Turn left here," she said, pointing to a dirt road. "It's the blue house at the end of the street. If anything has happened to her—" Theodore began, but he couldn't finish the sentence. "Marcus won't hurt her. He needs her intact to get money." Esme wiped her face with the back of her hand. "But he might scare her, and she's gone through so much fear in her life." When they arrived at the small house on the outskirts of town, Theodore immediately saw that something was wrong. The front door was wide open, and there was no sound coming from inside. He parked quickly and ran to the entrance, Esme right behind him. "Willow!" she shouted, entering the house. "Willow, where are you?" Silence. They searched every small room. The room where Willow slept was empty, with signs that someone had left in a hurry. Drawers open, clothes scattered on the floor. In the kitchen there were broken dishes and an overturned chair. "He took her," Esme whispered, leaning against the counter. "Marcus took my girl." Theodore looked for clues, anything that could indicate where they had gone. That's when he saw a crumpled piece of paper in the trash. He unfolded it and found a map of the city with a red circle marking a specific location, the old abandoned textile factory on the outskirts of town. "Do you recognize this?" he asked, showing the map to Esme. "It's where Marcus sometimes goes when he wants to be alone. It's isolated. Nobody goes there." She turned to Theodore, her eyes full of despair. "Mr. Cartwright, I know you must hate me for lying all these years, but please help me save her." "You don't need to ask me that," Theodore replied, putting the map in his pocket. "She's my niece. She's family." 20 minutes later, they arrived at the abandoned factory. The brick building was partially covered by vegetation, its broken windows like empty eyes. Marcus's car, an old, rusty sedan, was parked in front. "I'll go in alone," said Theodore. "No, I'm going with you. Willow will be scared. She'll need me." They approached the main entrance carefully. The metal door was ajar, and voices could be heard from inside. Marcus's deep voice, and to their relief, Willow's shrill, scared voice. "I want to go home," the girl was saying. "I want Esme." "Esme will come get you," Marcus replied. "But first we have to work some things out with your rich uncle." Theodore signaled for Esme to be quiet and approached the door. Through a crack he could see the interior of the factory. Marcus was sitting on a wooden crate, a cell phone in his hand. Willow was a few feet away from him, sitting on the dirty floor, hugging a rag doll that she must have brought from home. "Hello, Mr. Cartwright," Marcus was speaking on the phone. "I have something of yours here that you might want back." Theodore realized that Marcus was calling his house, probably talking to Mrs. Henderson. He decided to act before the situation escalated further. "You don't need the phone," he said, entering the factory. "I'm here." Marcus turned quickly, almost dropping the phone. "How did you—" "It doesn't matter how I got here. What matters is that you release my niece now." "Your niece?" Marcus laughed nervously. "So you already know who she is?" "I know. And I know what you're trying to do." Theodore took a step forward, but stopped when Marcus stood up and stood between him and Willow. "Then you know that she's worth a lot of money to your family." "She's not worth any money. She's worth everything." That's when Willow saw Theodore, and her face lit up with recognition. "It's the man from the alley," she exclaimed, trying to get up. "The gentle man who was hurt." "Hi, little one," said Theodore softly. "Do you remember me?" "Yes, I remember. Are you better from the hurt?" Willow took a few steps toward him, but Marcus grabbed her arm. "Stay there," he ordered the girl, then turned to Theodore. "Let's make a civilized deal, $200,000, and the girl goes back to you. No questions, no problems. I don't negotiate with blackmailers." "Oh, no?" Marcus squeezed Willow's arm tighter, making her complain in pain. "Then let's see if you change your mind." "Let her go!" Esme's voice echoed through the factory as she ran in. "You're hurting her!" "Esme!" Willow tried to run to her, but Marcus wouldn't let go. "You arrived at the right time," Marcus said to Esme. "Tell your boss here how our partnership works." "We have no partnership. You're kidnapping a child. I'm protecting an investment." Marcus pulled Willow closer to him. "This girl is the granddaughter of the richest man in town. She deserves to be compensated for the life of misery that you gave her." "She never had misery." Esme took a step forward. "I took care of her with love all these years." "Love doesn't pay the bills, Esme." It was at that moment that Theodore realized something important about the dynamics between the three. Marcus wasn't Esme's husband. He was her blackmailer. She was as much a victim as Willow. "How much do you want?" asked Theodore. "Theodore, no," Esme protested. 200,000 in cash." Marcus's eyes gleamed with greed. "And another 50,000 a year to keep quiet about how you lost the girl for 4 years. And if I don't pay? Then I'll tell the whole town how the Cartwright family abandoned a baby granddaughter, how the rich old man ordered a child to be killed." Marcus smiled cruelly. "Imagine the headlines in the newspapers." Theodore looked at Willow, who was watching him with those big eyes full of trust. The same trust that she had shown in the alley when she tried to help him without asking for anything in return. "All right," he said. "I'll pay." "Theodore, no," Esme despaired. "He'll never stop. He'll always want more." "She's right," agreed Theodore, looking directly at Marcus. "You'd never stop blackmailing us. That's why I'm not going to pay." Marcus's expression changed. "Then the girl stays with me." "No, she's coming home." "With me?" Theodore took his cell phone out of his pocket. "Because while we were talking here, my private investigator was delivering your complete criminal record to the local police." Marcus paled. "What record?" 3 counts of fraud in Denver, 2 outstanding warrants for skipping bail, and now kidnapping of a minor. Theodore showed him the phone screen. "The police should be arriving in about 5 minutes." As if on cue, the sound of sirens began to echo in the distance, growing louder with each second. "You're bluffing," said Marcus, but his voice trembled. "Want to bet your freedom on it?" Marcus looked at Willow, then at the door, then at Theodore. The sirens were getting closer and closer. "This isn't over," he said, abruptly releasing the girl's arm. Willow ran immediately to Esme, who hugged her tightly. Marcus ran towards the back exit of the factory, disappearing into the woods that surrounded the building. Theodore knelt in front of Willow, who was still in Esme's arms. "Are you okay, little one?" "I am," she replied, but her eyes were full of tears. He scared me. Nobody will scare you anymore, Theodore promised. Never again. When the police arrived, Marcus had already disappeared. But for the first time in 4 years, Willow was truly safe, protected by people who loved her, not for what she represented financially, but for what she was. A courageous and kind girl who deserved all the love in the world. 2 weeks had passed since the rescue at the abandoned factory, and life at the Cartwright mansion had changed completely. Willow now lived in the room that had once belonged to her Aunt Carolina, a spacious room with large windows that overlooked the flower garden. Esme had been officially hired as the girl's caregiver, in addition to continuing to take care of August. But the adaptation wasn't easy for anyone involved. "I want to go home," said Willow for the 10th time that morning, sitting on the edge of the luxurious bed, hugging her rag doll. "This is your home now, little one," replied Esme, trying to sound convincing as she put away the new clothes that Theodore had bought for the girl. "It's not, no. My home is the little blue house with you." Willow jumped off the bed and ran to the window. "Here it's very big, very quiet." Esme sighed. She perfectly understood the girl's discomfort. The mansion, as luxurious as it was, didn't have the cozy warmth of the small house where they had lived for 2 years. Here, every step echoed through the immense corridors. Every voice seemed lost in the vastness of the rooms. "Shall we go down for breakfast?" suggested Esme. "Mrs. Henderson made special pancakes for you." "I don't want pancakes. I want the bread with butter that you used to make." "I can make bread with butter here too, but it won't be the same." Willow rested her forehead on the cold window. "Nothing will be the same." Downstairs, in the dining room, Theodore was having coffee alone, lost in thought. Bennett had arrived early with more discoveries about the family's past, discoveries that left him increasingly disturbed. "I found the records you asked for," said Bennett, sitting down at the table with a thick folder. "About your sister Carolina." "What did you find out?" "She really ran away from home at 17, pregnant. But it wasn't out of shame for the family." Bennett opened the folder, revealing letters yellowed with time. "It was out of fear." "Fear of what?" "Of her father. Of your father." Bennett pointed to one of the letters. Carolina wrote several letters to friends, telling them that August had threatened to do something terrible if she didn't get rid of the pregnancy. Theodore felt his stomach churn. "What kind of threat?" "He said that if she had the baby, he would ensure that both she and the child disappeared from the face of the earth." Carolina believed that he was serious. My father threatened to kill his own daughter and the granddaughter. That's why Carolina ran away. That's why she never came home, even when she was in need." Bennett showed another letter. In this one, she writes that she would rather die in childbirth than hand the baby over to August. The heavy silence that followed was broken by footsteps descending the stairs. Esme appeared at the entrance of the room, holding the hand of Willow, who looked at everything around her with that cautious expression that she had developed since the move. "Good morning, Uncle Theodore," said Willow timidly. "Good morning, sweetheart." Theodore quickly put the papers away, not wanting the girl to see discussions about her mother. "Did you sleep well?" "Not much. The bed is too soft. I can't sleep right." Theodore exchanged a worried look with Esme. "We can change the mattress for a firmer one." "It's not just the mattress." Willow sat down in the huge chair, her feet barely reaching the ground. "It's everything. It's very different, but it's better, isn't it?" Theodore tried to sound animated. "You have your own room, new toys, pretty clothes. I liked my old clothes, and my broken toys." Willow pushed the pancake around on her plate. "They had a story." Esme sat down next to the girl. "Your old toys are stored in your new room. We didn't throw anything away." "But it's not the same. There they stayed on the floor near me. Here they stay on the big shelf, far away." Theodore realized that he was failing miserably at making Willow feel at home. Everything he offered, luxury, comfort, material security, meant less to her than the simplicity and genuine affection she had known in the small house. "Willow," he said gently, "what would you like to be different here?" The girl thought for a moment, stirring the food on her plate. "I wish it wasn't so big, and that it had more noise." More noise! That blue house was always buzzing. Neighbors chatting, kids playing in the street, Mrs. Henderson's radio. Willow sighed. "Here it's just silence. It's unsettling." That afternoon, while Willow played in the garden under Mrs. Henderson's supervision, Theodore had a difficult conversation with Clementine, who had come to deliver her final report on the case. "Marcus was apprehended yesterday in a neighboring town," she informed him. "He'll be locked up for quite some time. You don't need to worry about him anymore." "And the child? How is she adjusting?" Clementine hesitated. "Can I be frank with you?" "Please." "She's not adjusting, and maybe she never will, at least not in the way you expect." Clementine sat down in the leather armchair. "Theodore, this girl spent the first years of her life in simple conditions, but filled with genuine love. For her, affection has nothing to do with material comfort. But she has affection here too, and security." "Yes, she does. But she also has something she's never experienced before. Formality. Rules of behavior she doesn't understand. Expectations that frighten her." Clementine opened her notepad. "I spoke with her yesterday. Do you know what she told me?" "What?" "That she feels like a doll in a dollhouse. Pretty, well cared for, but not real." The observation hit Theodore like a punch to the gut. "What do you suggest I do?" "Stop trying to turn her into a little rich girl. Let her be the child she always was, only in a safe environment." Clementine closed her notepad. "And maybe consider that the life Esme gave her, despite the lies, was exactly what she needed." That night, Theodore found Willow in her room, sitting on the floor next to the bed, asleep with her head resting on her rag doll. He carefully picked her up to put her in bed, and she woke up. "Uncle Theodore?" "Yes, honey." "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did my mom leave your family?" The question Theodore had dreaded most had arrived. He sat on the edge of the bed, carefully choosing his words. "Sometimes families have problems that are hard to solve. Your mom was trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "From people who didn't know how to love a child the right way." Willow thought about this for a moment. "Doesn't Grandpa August know how to love children?" "Grandpa August is ill. When he was younger, he didn't realize that love is more important than anything else." "And do you know?" The simple but profound question made Theodore pause. Was he really loving Willow, or was he trying to compensate for his father's mistakes by offering luxury instead of genuine connection? "I'm learning," he admitted, "and you can teach me." "How?" "By telling me what would make you happy here. Truly happy." Willow sat up in bed, her eyes shining with cautious hope. "Can I really?" "You can. I wish Esme would sleep in the room next to mine, and I wanted to help cook like I did before, and I wanted you to tell me stories to go to sleep, not Mrs. Henderson. Anything else? I wish you wouldn't wear a suit inside the house. They're too scratchy for hugs." Theodore laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had in weeks. "All right. Tomorrow we'll change a few things around here. Promise?" "I promise." That night, for the first time since arriving at the mansion, Willow slept peacefully, and Theodore realized that learning to be an uncle would be much more challenging and much more rewarding than he had imagined. A month had passed since Theodore had promised changes in the mansion, and the atmosphere really began to transform. The room next to Willow's had been converted for Esme. The kitchen now received regular visits from the girl who loved to help Mrs. Henderson, and Theodore had traded his stiff suits for more casual clothes when he was home. But a new concern had arisen. August was deteriorating rapidly. "Dr. Thompson, I need to know the truth," Theodore said in the hallway, after the doctor examined his father for the third time that week. "How long does he have?" "It's hard to say with precision, but Maybe a few weeks. The dementia is progressing very quickly. The doctor put his stethoscope back in his bag. He has moments of lucidity still, but they are becoming rare. And is there anything we can do? Keep him comfortable. And maybe, Dr. Thompson hesitated, maybe it's time to resolve any outstanding issues he has. In his lucid moments, he talks a lot about regrets. That afternoon, Theodore found Willow in the garden, playing with a family of cats that had appeared on the property. She had named each of them and created small cardboard houses where they sheltered. "This one is Whiskers," she said, pointing to a tabby cat. "And this is Princess, because she always walks with her tail up as if she's very important." "Those are good names," Theodore agreed, sitting on the grass next to her, something he would never have done before meeting her. "Uncle Theodore, can I ask you something about Grandpa August?" "You can." "Why does he keep talking to himself? And sometimes he calls me Carolina?" Theodore sighed. It was impossible to completely shield Willow from the reality of her grandfather's illness. Grandpa August is sick in his mind. Sometimes he confuses the present with the past. "And is he sad because of my mom?" The girl's perception always surprised him. "Yes, he is. He's very sorry that he wasn't a better father to her." "Do you think he'd like to really meet me? Not as Carolina, but as Willow?" The question touched Theodore's heart. "Why do you ask that?" "Because if he's sad, maybe meeting Carolina's daughter will make him less sad." Willow stroked Princess, who purred in her lap. "And I'd like to meet my grandfather before he goes away." Theodore realized that he had underestimated Willow's emotional maturity. Despite being only 4 years old, she understood nuances about loss and reconciliation that many adults couldn't grasp. "Are you sure you want to meet him? He may be confused. He may not understand who you are." "It's okay. Esme told me that he took care of a lot of people in town when he was younger, that he helped poor families and built the school." Willow looked at Theodore with those big, wise eyes. If he was good before he got sick, then he's still good inside. That night, Theodore talked to Esme about the possibility of officially introducing Willow to her grandfather. "She insisted on this?" asked Esme, surprised. "She insisted. She says she wants him to know that his granddaughter is okay, is safe. It could be traumatic for her if he doesn't react well, or it could be exactly what they both need." Theodore sat in the armchair in Esme's room, watching Willow playing with the cats in the illuminated garden through the window. "Esme, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Why did you really take care of her all these years?" "The whole truth." Esme hesitated, then sat on the bed, organizing her thoughts. "Because I was also an abandoned child." "What do you mean?" "My parents left me in an orphanage when I was 3 years old. I grew up there until I was 18. Esme looked at her hands. "When I saw Carolina in the hospital, alone and scared, I remembered what it was like to have no one in the world. And later, when August asked you to make Willow disappear, I saw in her what I had been. A child who needed someone to love her, not out of obligation, but out of love." Esme wiped away a tear that had escaped. "When I lied to August that she had died, it wasn't just to protect her from him. It was to protect her from the system I knew. Cold orphanages, foster families that gave up, the feeling of being a burden. You saved her. We saved each other. She gave me a purpose, a reason to be better than I was." Esme smiled through her tears. "And now you're doing the same thing, becoming better because of her." The next day, Theodore carefully prepared the meeting between Willow and August. He waited for a moment when his father was lucid, then brought the girl to his room. "Grandpa August," said Willow timidly from the door. "Can I come in?" August, who was looking out the window, turned slowly. When he saw the girl, his eyes filled with surprising lucidity. "You," he began, his voice weak but clear. "Are you real?" "Yes, Grandpa, I'm Willow, Aunt Carolina's daughter." August extended a trembling hand, and Willow approached without fear, taking it between her small hands. "You're alive," he whispered. My little granddaughter is alive. Yes, I am, and I'm fine. Uncle Theodore and Esme take very good care of me. Tears began to run down August's wrinkled face. I did terrible things, child. I sent your mother away. I wanted you. I wanted you not to exist. But I do exist, said Willow simply, and now you can meet me. Do you forgive me? Forgive a foolish old man who didn't know how to love right? Willow thought for a moment, with the seriousness that only children can have. Grandpa, are you sorry? Very sorry. More sorry than you can imagine. Then I forgive you. Because people who are truly sorry deserve a second chance. August pulled his granddaughter into a hug, and for the first time in decades, he cried not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. You're wiser than your old grandfather, little one. That's because I had good teachers. Esme taught me that everyone deserves love. And Uncle Theodore taught me that family is who takes care of us. For the next 2 hours, August listened attentively as Willow told him about her life, the cats in the garden, her favorite games, how she helped Mrs. Henderson in the kitchen. And for the first time in years, he laughed genuinely when she imitated the way Princess walked with her tail up. When they finally said goodbye, August held Willow's hands once more. Promise Grandpa one thing? I promise. Never let anyone take that goodness out of your heart. The world needs more people like you. Okay, Grandpa. And you promise me one thing? What? Promise you won't be sad anymore because of my mom? She was protecting me, and now I'm safe, so she'd be happy. August nodded, too emotional to speak. When Willow left the room, he turned to Theodore. Son, that girl is an angel. Don't let anything bad happen to her. Never, Dad. I promise. That night, August slept for the first time in years with a smile on his face, and Willow, clutching her rag doll, dreamed that her mother was proud of her for giving her repentant grandfather a second chance. 3 days after the reconciliation meeting with Willow, August Cartwright passed away quietly in his sleep, with a serene smile on his face that no one had seen for years. Dr. Thompson confirmed that it was a peaceful passing. His heart simply stopped, as if it had finally found the peace it was seeking. Willow found Theodore crying in the library the next morning, surrounded by papers and old family photographs. Uncle Theodore, she said softly, did Grandpa August go away? Theodore wiped his eyes and opened his arms to her. He did, little one. He went to rest. Was he suffering? No, he was at peace. Thanks to you. Willow snuggled against Theodore's chest, processing the information in the unique way that children do. Can I go say goodbye to him? Of course you can. In the room where August rested, Willow stood beside the bed for a few minutes in silence. Then, with the naturalness that only children possess in the face of the mystery of final departure, she held her grandfather's cold hand. Grandpa, I hope you find Aunt Carolina where you're going, and that you don't fight any more. She kissed his forehead. Thank you for letting me meet you. August's funeral was an occasion that surprised the entire town. People he had helped decades ago came to pay their respects, entire families who had received their own homes through his social programs, young people who had obtained scholarships through the foundation he quietly maintained. I didn't know Dad did so much good, Theodore murmured to Bennett during the ceremony. August was always reserved about his charities. He said that good deeds don't need an audience, replied the accountant. Maybe he learned that from the mistakes he made with Carolina. After the funeral, when the guests had left, Theodore found an unexpected crowd waiting in the mansion's living room. They were simple people, some well-dressed, others clearly from humble backgrounds, but all with the same expression of concern. Mr. Cartwright? A middle-aged woman stepped forward holding the hand of a small child. Can we talk to you? Of course. About what? About the medicine, said an elderly man leaning on a cane. Nurse Esme always got medicine for our children when we didn't have the money to buy it, Theodore frowned. Medicine? For my grandson's asthma, said a lady. "For my daughter's diabetes," added another. "For Joan's pneumonia," said a third. Gradually, the truth was revealed. The irregularities that Bennett had discovered in the medical bills were not diversions for personal gain. Esme had created an informal network for distributing medicines to needy families in the town, using part of the supplies intended for August's treatment. "She saved my son," said a young mother holding a baby in her arms. "When he was born with a heart problem, we didn't have the money for the medicine. Esme appeared at the hospital with everything he needed." "How many families did she help?" asked Theodore, still processing the information. "Dozens," replied the man with the cane. "Maybe hundreds over the years. She never asked for anything in return. She just said not to tell anyone. And now we're afraid," said the first woman, "afraid that with Mr. August's death, the medicine will stop coming." Theodore looked at all those worried faces, fathers, mothers, grandparents who depended on Esme's silent generosity to keep their children healthy. He finally understood the true extent of the love that this woman had spread throughout the community. "Don't worry," he said. "The medicine will keep coming." That night, Theodore called a meeting with Esme and Bennett. "Why didn't you ever tell me about the families you help?" he asked Esme. "Because I was afraid that you would think I was stealing. But you were. Technically, I was," she admitted, lowering her head. "But I couldn't stand seeing children suffer when there was medicine to spare in the medical pantry." "To spare? Your father always bought in larger quantities than necessary. He said it was to ensure that nothing was ever lacking." Esme looked at Theodore. "I started slowly, only taking what was really left over. But when I saw how many children needed it, you expanded the operation. I expanded it, and I know it was wrong. I know I lied to you, but—" "Esme," Theodore interrupted, "how many children do you estimate you've helped in all these years?" She thought for a moment. "Directly, about 200, but if you count the families that those children formed when they grew up healthy, you created an informal healthcare network for the entire town." Bennett spoke up. "Theodore, technically she violated the family's trust. Technically, yes. Morally, she did exactly what my father would have wanted done." Theodore got up and walked to the window. "Bennett, I want you to organize an official foundation, the Carolina Cartwright Foundation." "What for?" "To formalize what Esme already does. Free medical care for needy families in the region." Theodore turned to Esme. "And you're going to run this foundation." "Mr. Cartwright, I don't have the training for—" "Then we're going to give you the training, full scholarship to finish the medical degree you abandoned." Theodore smiled. "It's time for you to stop hiding your calling." Esme began to cry. "I don't know if I deserve—" "You do, yes. And you know how I know?" Theodore pointed to the garden, where Willow was playing with the cats in the sunset light. "Because of her. You turned a terrible situation into a love story. And now we're going to multiply that love throughout the town." The following week, as the foundation papers were being prepared, Willow made an observation that changed Theodore's plans once again. "Uncle Theodore, why isn't the foundation going to take care of homeless children too?" "What do you mean, sweetie? You said the foundation is going to give medicine to sick children, but what about the children who don't have a home, who don't have a family to take them to the doctor?" Theodore stopped what he was doing. In all his grandiose plans to honor Carolina's memory and formalize Esme's work, he had forgotten the children in the most vulnerable situation. Those like Willow had been. "You're right. What kind of care do you think they need?" "A safe place to sleep when it's raining, food when they're hungry, and mainly," Willow thought carefully, "mainly someone who doesn't give up on them. Like Esme didn't give up on you. Like Esme didn't give up on me." That night, Theodore completely rewrote the foundation's project. It would not only be a medicine distribution center, but a comprehensive shelter for children in vulnerable situations. And the name changed too. It would be Carolina House. in honor of the sister he never really knew, but who had created the wisest granddaughter in the world. "Esme will run the medical part," he explained to Willow, "and you can help me think about how to make the children feel at home." "Can I really?" "You can. You're an expert at knowing what a child needs to be happy." Willow smiled, hugging her rag doll. "I'll help, yes, because every child deserves to have a family that loves them." That night, while Willow slept peacefully in her room in the mansion, Theodore realized that he had learned the most important lesson of his life. The true legacy is not in the money you accumulate, but in the lives you transform through genuine love. 6 months after August's passing, life in Harmony Creek had transformed in a way that no one could have predicted. Carolina House was almost ready, a welcoming complex built on the grounds near the mansion, with colorful dormitories, study rooms, a complete medical clinic, and, at Willow's suggestion, a large garden where the children could plant their own flowers. Esme had returned to medical studies through a special program for experienced professionals, combining online classes with practical internships. Her hands, which for years had secretly cared for August and distributed medicines to needy families, now studied anatomy and pharmacology with the passion of someone who had finally found her true path. But it was during a routine consultation with Dr. Thompson that Theodore received the news that would change everything again. "The tests show a faster progression than we expected," said the doctor, closing the folder with Theodore's neurological results. "The condition you inherited from your father is advancing. How long do I have before I become like he was? It's difficult to predict with precision. Maybe 2 years of maintaining complete lucidity. After that?" Dr. Thompson sighed. "Theodore, you need to prepare, and you need to prepare Willow." The news hit Theodore like a devastating blow. At 58, when he had finally discovered his life's purpose, when he had found in his niece the family he never knew he needed, time was running out. For 2 weeks, he kept the secret to himself, watching Willow play in the garden, help in the kitchen, draw plans for Carolina House with the excitement of a child who finally felt useful and loved. How could he tell her that once again she would lose someone important? It was Bennett who forced the issue. "You need to organize your affairs, Theodore," said the accountant, during a meeting about the final details of the foundation. "Will, guardianship of the girl, administration of Carolina House. I still have time. Maybe less than you think. And Willow deserves to know the truth. She's already lost so many people. That's why. She has the right to prepare, to enjoy the time you have together." Bennett leaned forward. "Theodore, that girl is stronger than you think. She survived abandonment, Marcus's abuse, the loss of the grandfather she barely knew. She can handle this truth, too." That night, Theodore found Willow in the garden, as he always did before bed. She was talking to Princess, the cat that had become her constant companion. "What are you talking about?" he asked, sitting on the grass next to her. "I was telling her about the children who are going to live at Carolina House. That they're going to have cozy rooms and 3 meals a day." Willow stroked the cat's fur. "And that they're going to have people who will take care of them, always." "Always is a very strong word, sweetie. Why? Aren't you going to take care of Carolina House always?" The moment had arrived. Theodore took a deep breath, carefully choosing his words. "Willow, do you remember the illness that Grandpa August had?" "I remember. It made him forget things and get confused." "That's right. I have the same illness." Willow stopped stroking Princess and looked at Theodore with those big, attentive eyes. "Are you going to get confused too?" "I am, yes. Not now, but in a while." "And are you going to forget about me?" The most painful question Theodore could hear. "Maybe my mind will forget some things. But my heart will never forget you." Willow was silent for a long time, processing the information with the seriousness that children reserve for the most important moments in life. "Uncle Theodore, how long do we have before you get sick?" "A good amount of time still, enough time to finish Carolina House, to see you grow up a little more." "And after?" After that, Esme will take care of you, and of me too if I need it. And Carolina House, it's going to continue running. Bennett will manage everything. Esme will take care of the medical part. And you, Theodore smiled, you're going to continue giving ideas on how to make the children feel at home. Willow got up and hugged Theodore with all the strength her small arms allowed. I don't want you to get sick. I don't want to either, but sometimes life gives us challenges that we don't choose. He hugged her back. The important thing is what we do with the time we have. And what are we going to do? We're going to live each day as if it was special. We're going to finish our house for the children. We're going to teach Esme everything about taking care of you. Theodore kissed the top of her head. And we're going to create beautiful memories that even the illness can't erase. The following week, Willow began to demonstrate a maturity that impressed everyone around her. She made a point of learning about the illness that would affect Theodore, asking Dr. Thompson about symptoms and treatments. She began to help more with the household chores, as if she were preparing to take on greater responsibilities. But it was during the first visit to Carolina House, now almost ready, that she revealed the plan she had been developing secretly. Uncle Theodore, she said, walking through the colorful corridors of the new shelter, when you get sick, can you come live here with us? What do you mean? Well, Carolina House is to take care of people who need care, right? And if you get confused like Grandpa August did, you're going to need care too. Willow stopped in front of a larger room, clearly planned for an administrator. I thought you could stay in this room. That way I can visit you every day, and you can meet all the children we're going to help. Theodore felt his eyes fill with tears. The girl had transformed his greatest fear, becoming a burden to her, into an opportunity to still be part of something meaningful. And you don't think I'd be a problem for the other children? Of course not. You're going to be the kind grandpa of Carolina House, and when you forget some things, the children can help you remember. Willow took his hand. Just like you helped me remember that I could be loved. Esme, who had heard the entire conversation, approached the two of them. Willow, are you sure you want to take on this responsibility? Yes, I am. Because family takes care of family, and family doesn't abandon anyone when they get sick. That night, Theodore reformulated his plans once again. Carolina House would not only be a shelter for needy children, it would also be a home for elderly people who needed special care. A place where different generations could take care of each other, where children wounded by life could find borrowed grandparents, and where adults who were losing their memories could still contribute with their experience and love. It's perfect, said Bennett when Theodore presented the new proposal. An intergenerational care center. I've never seen anything like it. It was Willow's idea, said Theodore proudly. She has an understanding of love that it took me 58 years to learn. 2 weeks before the official inauguration of Carolina House, Willow made a final request that caught Theodore completely off guard. Uncle Theodore, can you officially adopt me? Adopt you? But I'm already your family. I know, but I want it to be on paper too, so when you get sick, no one can say we're not a real family. Willow looked at him with determination. And I want to change my name. To what? Willow Cartwright. Because Cartwright means that something new is beginning. And my new life began when you found me in the alley. Theodore knelt in front of her, too emotional to speak for a few moments. When he managed to find the words, they came out charged with all the love he had discovered he was capable of feeling. It would be the greatest honor of my life to have you as my daughter officially. And so, in the same week that Carolina House would open its doors to welcome its first class of needy children, Willow legally became the daughter of Theodore Cartwright, heir not only to his fortune, but mainly to his newfound ability to love unconditionally. 18 months had passed since the inauguration of Carolina House, and the place had become the beating heart of Harmony Creek. 23 children now called that place home, from abandoned babies to teenagers who had come off the streets. 4 elderly people also lived there, including Theodore, who had moved to the house when the first serious signs of mental confusion began to appear. Willow, now 6 years old, had become the official little hostess of the place. Every morning she made her rounds through the rooms, greeting each child and each elderly person by name, remembering birthdays, consoling nightmares, celebrating small victories. "Good morning, Mr. Adler," she said to an 80-year-old man who had arrived 3 months ago. "How was your night?" "Good, Willow. I dreamed about my wife again." Mr. Adler smiled. "She said I'm in the right place." "Of course you are. And today is the day to plant the sunflower seeds you brought, remember?" "I remember, yes. Can you help me?" "I can. Yes." After breakfast, Willow continued her round, stopping in the room where Theodore spent most of his days. He was sitting in the armchair near the window, looking at the garden with that distant expression that had become familiar. "Hi, Dad," she said softly. She had started calling him Dad when she realized that it helped him maintain a connection with reality. Theodore turned, and for a moment his gaze was empty. Then slowly a recognition appeared in his eyes. "Willow, my girl. Yes, it's me." She sat on the arm of the armchair, as she did every day. "Do you want me to tell you about the new children?" "Tell me, yes." "A girl named Sophia arrived yesterday. She's 3 years old and doesn't talk much yet, but she already liked Whiskers." Willow was referring to the tabby cat that had become the official mascot of Carolina House. "And Johnny, remember him? He already knows how to read whole words." Theodore smiled, that smile that still shone even when his mind wandered through distant places. You take good care of everyone. I learned from you, Dad. And from Esme." "Esme." Theodore repeated the name, as if he were trying to organize the memories. She's good." "Yes, she is. And she's almost graduated from medical school. She said she's going to have a party when she gets her diploma." At that moment, Esme herself appeared at the door. At 33, she had flourished in an impressive way. The medical course had awakened a confidence in her that she had never had, and her dedication to her studies was inspiring to all the children at Carolina House. "Good morning, Theodore. How are you feeling today?" "Better when she's here." He pointed to Willow. She helps me remember who I am." "I know." She has that gift. Esme checked Theodore's medications, a routine that had become natural. "Willow, breakfast is ready, and Miles is asking if you can help him with his math homework afterward." "Sure. Dad, do you want to come down for breakfast with us?" "I want to, if you help me." Together they went down to the communal dining room, where the cheerful noise of children having breakfast filled the atmosphere. It was exactly the kind of noise that Willow had missed in the silent mansion. Vibrant life, lively conversations, spontaneous laughter. "Aunt Willow!" shouted a 5-year-old girl named Abby. "Come sit here next to me." Willow had become aunt to all the children younger than her, a title she carried with pride and responsibility. She helped Theodore sit in a nearby chair, then took her place among the children. "Today we're going to plant sunflowers with Mr. Adler," she announced to the table. "Who wants to help?" A forest of little hands went up, accompanied by excited shouts. Theodore watched the scene with a smile that mixed lucidity and confusion, but mostly love. She's going to be a good leader when she grows up," he murmured to Esme. "She's already a good leader," she replied. "She learns too fast. Sometimes I forget she's only 6 years old." After breakfast, the routine of Carolina House unfolded with the precision of a well-rehearsed symphony. The school-aged children went to the study room, where 2 teachers hired by the foundation offered personalized education. The younger ones played in the indoor garden under the supervision of specialized caregivers. The elderly participated in cognitive stimulation activities and physical therapy. Willow circulated among all the groups, a small supervisor who knew the specific needs of each resident. She knew that Peter had difficulty with math, but was brilliant in English. that Mary cried on Thursday nights because she had been abandoned on a Thursday, that Mr. Antonio got agitated when it rained because it reminded him of the day he lost his wife. "How does she manage to remember everything?" asked one of the teachers to Esme during lunch. "I think when you grow up knowing what it's like to have no one who remembers you, you develop a special memory for others," replied Esme, watching Willow help an autistic child organize his toys according to colors. In the afternoon, Clementine made one of her regular visits. The private investigator had become a kind of informal consultant to Carolina House, helping to locate families of lost children and investigating the backgrounds of potential adopters. "I have news about Sophia," she said to Esme and Bennett during a meeting in the office. "I found her aunt, a young woman, financially stable, who was desperate when the girl disappeared." "And why didn't she seek official help?" asked Bennett. "Fear. She's not a biological relative, just a neighbor who took care of the child when the parents were arrested for drug trafficking. She was afraid that social workers wouldn't let her keep the girl. And now? Now that the situation is regularized through Carolina House, we can facilitate a reunion. If all goes well, Sophia can go home." These were the best possible news at Carolina House, when a child found a loving family and could rebuild her life. But they were also bittersweet moments, especially for Willow, who became deeply attached to each new child who arrived. That night, she sat in the garden with Theodore, who had had a particularly confused day, mistaking her for Carolina several times. "Dad, do you know who I am?" she asked gently. Theodore looked at her for a long moment, his features contracting in an effort to organize scattered thoughts. You're my treasure, my special girl." "I'm Willow, Dad. Your daughter." "Willow?" He repeated the name as if it were a prayer. "Willow, the girl from the alley." "That's right. And you saved me. You gave me a family." "No. You saved me." The words came out with difficulty but loaded with certainty. "You taught me to love." That night, Willow helped Theodore get ready for bed, a reversal of roles that she had accepted with impressive naturalness. She checked if he had taken his medication, if there was water on the bedside table, if the lamp was positioned correctly. "Dad, can I tell you a secret?" "You can. Sometimes I'm afraid that you'll forget about me completely, that one day I'll come here and you won't know who I am anymore." Theodore held her little hand with all the strength he could muster. Even if I forget your name, even if I forget my own name, my heart will always know that you're my daughter. Promise. I promise. Because true love lives in a place that the disease can't reach." Willow kissed her father's forehead and left the room, closing the door softly. In the hallway, she found Esme waiting for her. "How is he today?" "Confused, but still full of love," replied Willow. "That's what matters, right, Esme?" "That's exactly what matters, my little wise one." As they walked together back to Willow's room, she asked, "Esme, when you finish medical school, are you going to stay here at Carolina House? Forever? This is my home now. Our family is here. And when I grow up, can I continue taking care of the children too?" "You can, yes. In fact, I think you were born for this." That night, Willow slept hugging her rag doll, the same one she had carried since the difficult times in the small house on the outskirts of town. But now she was no longer a helpless child, sleeping in fear of the next day. She was a loved girl who had found her purpose in life at age 6, to take care of other people as she herself would like to be cared for. And even knowing that she would gradually lose the father she loved so much, she faced the future with hope, because she had learned the most valuable lesson in the world, that true love multiplies when it is shared, and that a family can be built not only by blood ties, but by daily choices of mutual care and dedication. 5 years had passed since Willow officially became a Cartwright, and the day of her elementary school graduation was approaching. At 11 years old, she had become a young woman of striking personality, with the wisdom of someone who had lived profound experiences and the determination of someone who had found her purpose very early. Carolina House now housed 42 children and 8 elderly people, having become a model for similar projects in other cities. Esme, already graduated in medicine for 2 years, directed not only the house's clinic, but also supervised 3 health centers in the region. Her transformation from self-taught nurse to respected doctor had inspired several other women in the city to resume their studies. Theodore, now 64, spent most of his days in a state of increasing confusion, but still had precious moments of lucidity, especially when Willow was around. He had become the beloved grandfather of all the children at the house, who affectionately called him Grandpa Theo, and competed to push his wheelchair through the flower gardens. On the morning of the graduation, Willow woke up before everyone else, as she always did. Her first stop was Theodore's room, where she found him already awake, looking out the window at the garden where the younger children would soon be playing. "Good morning, Dad," she said, kissing his forehead. "Today is a special day." Theodore turned to her, and his eyes had that flash of recognition that still made her smile. My girl is growing up." "I am, yes. Today I'm graduating from elementary school. And do you know what my highest grade was?" "What?" "Composition. I wrote about you, about how a rich man learned that true wealth is in loving unconditionally." Willow showed him the award-winning essay which had been highlighted in the municipal contest. The teacher said it was the most beautiful story she had ever read. Theodore tried to take the paper with trembling hands, but he couldn't hold it properly. Willow read some excerpts aloud and saw tears run down his face. You made me a better person," he murmured. "No, Dad, you were already good. You just needed to discover that." Later, in the main hall of Carolina House, decorated especially for the ceremony, the entire unconventional family was gathered. Bennett, now 74, had made a point of coming from the capital where he lived with his daughter. Clementine was present, accompanied by the husband she had met 2 years earlier. Dr. Thompson, retired but still a regular visitor to the house, occupied the front row next to Mrs. Henderson, who had moved to the house when she became a widow. But it was the children of Carolina House who formed the most enthusiastic audience. From the 3-year-olds to the 17-year-olds, all looked at Willow as an example of what could be achieved with dedication and love. "We are here to celebrate not only the graduation of Willow Cartwright," said Esme, serving as Master of Ceremonies, "but also to reflect on the 5 years of history of our Carolina House." She went on to present numbers that impressed even those who followed the work closely. 87 children had passed through the house over the years, with 52 finding loving adoptive families or being reunited with relatives. Dozens of families in the region had received free medical treatment. 15 young people who had passed through the house were already attending college with foundation scholarships. "But the numbers don't tell the whole story," continued Esme. "The true story is in the smiles recovered, in the nightmares that turned into dreams, in the children who learned to trust in love again." When it was Willow's turn to speak, she stood up with the naturalness of someone who had grown accustomed to leading, but with the humility of someone who never forgot where she came from. "When I was 4 years old and living on the streets, I used to draw birds," she began, her clear voice echoing through the hall. "But they were always birds trapped in cages, because that's how I felt, trapped in a life I didn't choose." She paused and looked at Theodore, who was in the front row being pushed in his wheelchair by Miles, one of the first boys to arrive at the house, and who now, at 15, had become her personal assistant in caring for the elderly. "Until one day I found a man lying in an alley. He was lost, confused, hurt. I helped him because I learned in life that when you have little, sharing is the only way to have more." Willow smiled. "I didn't know I was saving my future father." and he didn't know he was being saved by the daughter he never imagined having. The silence in the hall was total, broken only by the emotional sobs of some in attendance. Today I draw different birds. I draw birds flying free because I learned that freedom is not having a family. It's having a family that loves you exactly as you are. Willow looked at all the children in the audience, and I discovered that family is not just who you're born with. Family is who chooses to stay with you, who takes care of you when you're sick, who celebrates your victories and helps you through your defeats. She paused, taking a paper from her pocket. I want to read a letter I wrote to myself when I was 6 years old, on the day I came to live in the Cartwright mansion for the first time. The letter, written in still childish handwriting, said, "Dear Willow of the future, I hope that when you read this, you still remember the scared girl who lived in the blue house and dreamed of having a real family. I hope you don't forget where you came from, to always remember to help other children who are lost like you were. And I hope that Uncle Theodore has become your real dad, because he has the most beautiful heart I've ever known. Signed, Willow, who didn't know what it was like to be loved yet." When she finished reading, there were no dry eyes in the hall. "I got everything I asked for in this letter," continued Willow, "and much more. I got a family that includes not only my father Theodore and my heart-mother Esme, but every child who has passed through here, every elderly person who has found a home here, every person who works with us, taking care of those who need it." She looked again at Theodore, who had fallen asleep in his wheelchair, a serene smile on his face. "My father is losing his memories because of the illness, but I will keep the memories for both of us. I will remember the brave man who decided to love an unknown child. I will remember the father who taught me that money is only good for something when it is used to do good to others." Her voice broke slightly. "And I will remember that he told me once that true love lives in a place that the disease cannot reach." Willow finished her speech with an announcement that surprised even Esme. "For that reason, I want to announce to you that when I turn 18, I intend to study medicine like my mother Esme. And when I graduate, I want to expand the work of Carolina House to other cities, because I learned that one saved child can save other children. And that love multiplies when it is shared." The hall exploded in applause. Theodore woke up with the noise and, even confused, began to clap too, as if his heart knew that something very special was happening. After the ceremony, when the guests had left and the children were asleep, Willow sat in the garden where it had all begun, next to Theodore's wheelchair. The full moon illuminated the beds of sunflowers that Mr. Adler had planted years ago, and that now bloomed majestically every year. "Dad, even if you don't remember my name tomorrow, I want you to know one thing," she said, holding his hand. "You fulfilled the promise you made when you adopted me. You gave me not only a family, but a mission in life." Theodore opened his eyes, and in a rare moment of absolute lucidity, looked directly at her. "Willow, my brave girl, you're going to change the world." "No, Dad. We've already changed the world, one heart at a time." That night, while helping Theodore get ready for bed, Willow realized that she had reached the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. The lost 4-year-old girl had transformed into an 11-year-old with a clear purpose and a generous heart. The rich and lonely man had become a loving father who, even losing his words, still radiated love through his eyes. And Carolina House, which had begun as a project to honor the memory of a lost sister, had become a beacon of hope for hundreds of lives. When Willow finally lay down in her own bed, hugging the rag doll that had accompanied her forever, she smiled, thinking that sometimes the best families are those we choose to build, piece by piece, with patience, love, and the firm conviction that every child deserves the chance to discover how much she can be loved. And in the garden of Carolina House, under the moonlight, the sunflowers continued growing toward the sun, just like all the lives that had found a second chance to flourish there. If you enjoyed this wonderful story, please comment. Your opinion is very important. And if you love beautiful stories, subscribe to my channel. I promise to make your day better with my videos.